Okay, hello everybody, how are you today? So, as you see, we have here a new device that I'm going to show you guys how to use. It's called a food processor. And we're going to start by using this for our empanada dough instead of doing it by hand. You don't have to do it by hand, but I'm going to do the recipe for the dough and the discos, which is called. If not, you can always get these. These are the frozen discos. These are the large ones, so you can put maybe about an ounce or so of beef in them. You could bake these, but primarily they're good for frying. The ones that we make today, I'm going to bake them, but I'll fry maybe one or two of them just so you can see. Usually the ones that you make with the fresh dough, they come out much better and crispier baked in the oven. We'll put a little egg wash on them, and they'll be ready to go. So, without having been said, if you choose to do the dough, like kudos, you'll definitely get extra points for that. But if you don't, it's fine using the frozen discos that I just showed you. These are the white ones, and they also come in yellow, different sizes, smaller. They have Goya ones now that are just made for the oven. They're called Del Horno or whatever, and they bake well too. So, but if you choose to make the dough by hand, you could cheat by using this machine, and I'll show you how to use this. You could do many kinds of pastry dough and pastry crusts with this device, but let me show you how you kind of put it together and how it works overall. Okay, so most importantly, safety first. All right, so most of you guys have this kind of device at home. Okay, it has the engine on the bottom, and then it has the other two connective parts. So I'll take it apart and put it back together so you guys can see how it's supposed to work out. Okay, so you got to twist this out of the lock and take it out. Inside you have the blade. Okay, this is very sharp, but you have to also turn this to the left to unlock the handle. All right, so now that the handle's unlocked, you can safely lift this out. You can lift out your blade. Okay, you have to take these all out. Most of them are dishwasher safe. These come with multiple blades. This is the regular serrated edge. Okay, it's very sharp. Okay, it comes with another blade for chopping, and it also has attachments that you could use for shredding as well as grating. Okay, but I really don't think they're that good. This thing is primarily best to use for grating. Okay, I mean not grating, for blending up things. So you have the pulse. You can see here there's dough, there's on, off. The pulse is, which means to hit it, and if you've seen the recipe, it says to pulse it. Just you hit that button, it goes boom, 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 and I'll show you when I'm doing the dough. Okay, just to turn it on just means to keep it going. Maybe if you're doing an emulsification for like a dressing or something like that. All right. So now to put it back on, you can't just throw everything like this haphazardly. You gotta put it on a certain way. So you gotta put it almost like at, I would say, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock degree position. Then you gotta turn it up. So mine is a little closer, and then go from this position and lock it. All right. Then once this is locked in, so we'll go from here. Some are further away. Mine is closer. So lock it in place. Then you see how this little imprint will fit this like a Lego. Just let it drop in there. So now you can see that that's on safely. And same thing with this. Slide it from left to right to lock. You hear that click. I'll do it one more time. You can hear the click. All right, so just so we know one last time, just boom, boom, boom. Okay, click, take that off, click, take that off, this comes out, okay? Go back, put this in place, put that guy right down there, and click this guy right back in place as well. It won't work, it won't even turn on. Like right now, you probably can't see it, but I have the button on, but if I turn it to the lock position, it'll come on automatically. As a safety feature, as soon as I move it off, the blade stops. So that's really good for safety. And it won't start backwards, okay? Just always remember the handle faces you. I've seen my students have the handle here, and they're like, oh, chef, it's not working, it's not working. It has to be like this, okay? So, like I said, for pulse, you hit the pulse button, you'll hear the engine just kick up every time you tap the pulse button. So, listen up. And you can see the blade. That's just a pulse. And we're going to kind of do that. Okay, we're kind of going to make a dough that's similar to like a almost like a biscuit dough where we make it mealy, which means that you have the small granules of butter. In this recipe, we're going to use 1 stick of butter. That the granules will be nice and mealy, so almost a little pebbly, okay, or pea-size, as they say. All right. So let's look at our mise en place for this. We have our 1 stick of butter, okay. We have our vinegar, okay, preferably white, 1 teaspoon. We have our 1/4 cup of water. Okay, we have our flour that's been sifted, all right, and we have our salt as well. So I'm not going to sift this so much together because they're going to blend up real nice in here, okay? And last but not least, I have my egg, my huevo right here, okay? So let's put this in there, okay? The recipe really says with your fingertips, but we're going to cheat and use the machine. All right, let me just put this guy over here. So carefully, and without making a giant mess, just try to get the flour in there. In goes the salt, okay? So now I'm gonna pulse it a little bit. Like I said, we're cheating using the machine, so we'll sift it just by pulsing it. Just tap it 3-4 times. That's about 6-7. But if I open it up, you can see how it's much more finer and much more smoother than when it was. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna pulse in my stick of butter, okay? I want to actually cube it up. Hey, baby. So, I'm actually gonna use my kitchen shears. Just, you know, kitchen shears are a great tool. It just means like a culinary scissor, okay? And I'm gonna use these just to cut it into small pieces right in, instead of mealing it or dicing it. Okay, just be careful if you're doing this because it could be a little slippery, all right? But make sure that this is pretty ice cold, okay? All right, savvy. So now, I'm gonna put this guy back on. Remember, turn it from left to right. It's off right now, so it's not automatically gonna come on. And I'm gonna pulse it until we get that mealy consistency, okay? Maybe about 10-15 times and we'll check it. So let's check it out now. Got some long pulses there. Some flour may come out because I have this other contraption on here. So let's see how we are now. So if I take a look at it, it's still kind of pea-sized. But if I push it together, you see how it's kind of forming a crust-like substance. All right, so let me just pulse this a little longer until we get a finer, all this flour everywhere. All right, just clean up a little bit. Remember, clean station. I don't have a crack editing team, so I can't just edit this out all the time. All right, so just let it go on for a little bit. You always want to put your hand over it, as you can see that I'm doing like this. All right, so let's check it out now. All right, so I think that's more what we're looking for. So there's no big pieces, and it's more really mealy. So if I squeeze it together, you can see how that butter is really incorporated nicely into the flour, okay? So let me clean up a second here and we'll start incorporating the rest of our ingredients. And this guy right here will pretty much do all the work for us, all right? So now I'm gonna whisk together my wet before I incorporate it into the dry, so it's all evenly distributed. So I'm gonna put my 1 egg in here, my 1 tap, open it up just like that with your finger. 2 points into the garbage can, okay? Ice cold water, 1/4 cup in there. And our vinegar, okay? All right. Now that we've got that out of the way, so we're gonna whisk this up a little bit. But at this point, if you wanna get that nice yellow color as well as the flavor in the crust, that kind of kicks it up a little bit. Sometimes I like to use this. You could add a little curry powder, preferably the Jamaican style, not like Indian or Madras powder. This will give it the color and more of that like Jamaican patty flavor. This right here is the sazon, which we're going to use in the beef as well, okay, when we start prepping that. I'm going to put 1 pack of this in there for flavor, but also for the color, okay? All right, and we do this in a liquid because the coloring and food coloring, which comes from the annatto, which is achote, which we'll go over further when we do the beef, is a natural coloring agent made from the seeds of a certain dried plant. Where does that achote come from? That's my Spanish wife in the background. We all know it. It's the seeds of a plant. Yeah, an annatto seed or achote. Okay, so I'm gonna mix this together. See, it's a group effort here. Okay, get that yolk nice and combined. All right, I'll just hit this for a second. All right, sweet. So now I'm gonna incorporate my wet into my dry, but I'm going to do that. Make sure my machine is off. But I'm going to take out this bit here. All right, usually with the safety feature, it won't work. Have it on right now because this bit here is not in there. So that's another safety feature. But for emulsification and for pouring things in, you could remove this and you'll see it will work. So I'm going to slowly pour this in. Actually, let me get a sieve real quick, just so I don't make a complete mess of things. And this is good, especially if you're doing emulsifications and stuff like that. So I'm going to add this in as I pour it. Okay. All right, so now it'll kind of come together. So if I stop it now, you can kind of see it coming off the sides, and it's actually making the crust itself. It's coming together. It's doing the work for you. Okay, so we're gonna let this go just a little more until I completely see it off the sides. Once it's clear of the sides, we're good to go. Once it balls up, okay, and there we see, guys. Check it out. It feels a little wet, and if it feels a little wet, that's fine because we're gonna add more flour to it as we roll them out. So now, if you've been brave enough or chefy enough to have made the dough, we're gonna wrap it up now real quick. I'm gonna clean up a little bit and then get my mise en place for my beef. But let me show you how we do this first. All right, so now for this dough to be good, just like any crust, we're gonna you know, wrap it up, let it stay in the fridge a little bit. Just put a little flour on your board, on your hands, okay? We're gonna remove this guy, but be careful with the blade, okay? Kind of looks like a big thing of Vermont cheddar spread. All right. Now this recipe yields about 12 discos, which are about more the smaller size than the larger size. Okay, so I'm just gonna work this a little bit, just fold it over a few times. Kind of like how we did with the garlic knot dough, just go under, kind of make that mozzarella ball. You want a nice smooth crust, okay? And you don't want to overwork it, remember, because we want it to be crispy, okay? All right, so I think we're good right about now, okay? So I'm gonna put this in the fridge for at least 2 hours, or if you want to, overnight. Make sure you get no scragging here, okay? You want it to all come together, so if you gotta work a little more, it's fine. Okay, remember that other method where you can kind of bowl it with your palm of your hand. Okay, so that's good. I'm gonna wrap this in plastic cling film. Okay, if I can get it over here. All right, and remember, don't add too much more flour to it because you will be working with this again, because you will divide this into at least in half and then 6 pieces across to make 6 little balls, so we can make the discs from those balls. So kind of make a patty it together. All right, let me put this guy here. You know. All right, always put the cling film out first. Put this down and go over. Okay. All right. Now just pull underneath lightly. Don't pull it too tight. Okay. So you got like a nice little packet. All right. We'll pop this guy in the fridge. Okay. Make sure the label. Someone throw me a pen. No. Anyway, if I would have a marker. Someone show a marker. All right. Someone handed me a nice marker. So with your Nudolph green, put today's date. Always label. What's today's date again?
29th, November 29th.
Okay. 20, worst year ever. Okay. So we're going to put this in the refrigerator for at least 2 hours or overnight. All right. And now we're going to get our meats together for the beef. Okay. Now it's time for the hardware or the stuffing, the filling, the carne, as it will be. So look how tiny I printed out my recipe. Either way, so got our knife. Carefully take it out of the sheath. Put the sheath aside. Okay, it's already nice and freshly sharp as we hear that singing sound. Knows that it's sharp, so be very careful. All right, so first off, some of the chopped things. We have onions, peppers, and jalapenos. If you see the recipe, it says you can sub it out for something more spicy. I like a little more kick, so I use jalapeno, even though I seed it, so I get the flavor as well as some heat. So I leave a little of the pith in there, and of course our garlic. All right. If you don't want jalapenos, you don't like them, you could sub them out. For red peppers, you could even add tomatoes, something like that. Okay, so I'm gonna get this chopped. We're also gonna use some cilantro, some Spanish olives with pimento in them, and I'm gonna go over this a little bit, as well as some tomato paste. Okay, we're sort of making like a refrito, which is similar to a sofrito. Okay, the only difference is kind of because it has peppers, onions, and garlic instead of tomatoes, onions, and peppers. Okay, so, and garlic, I mean. So, just to refresh on how we cut our onions. So, the recipe says 1/4 cup. You can use the measuring cup here, or if you have something, a 2-ounce souffle cup will be good because 2 ounces is a 1/4 cup, just like we know. Okay, but you can also eyeball it and do maybe just a 1/4 of this onion would probably suffice. In this case, if you have a little bit over, the onion won't give you too much. It will give you more flavor than if it's another ingredient, say like cloves. It's really strong. That if you put more than one, it's really a game changer. Okay. All right. So remember, take off the stem part, put it upright. All right. All righty. Now that we have it that way, we're gonna cut in half once. Okay, and then we're gonna 1/4 it. Actually, I don't take that back. Take the paper off like we did before. Okay. Don't worry if you take off too much of a layer. You want to get nice and smooth. And as you can see, this is a nice clean onion, fresh. Doesn't have any sliminess going on right here, so it's going to cut well. So remember, we're going to slice a few ways this way and then perpendicular that way, so we get a small dice. Okay. So let me get on that right now. Just remember, like I said, take your time. You don't have to go as fast as I do. That comes with experience. Okay. Okay. Not all the way through, just enough to keep it together. Okay, now perpendicular again, and then from a rocking motion. I'm holding it like this together, rocking motion. Okay, nice and easy. Okay, and the natural anatomy of the onion will help to give you that dice. A beautiful little consistent dice. All right. So if you're looking here now like, oh my God, what's a 1/4? You could just measure what you have right here. Okay, so I'm going to use this 2.0 ounce cup and just put what I have in there. Kind of lightly pack it. And this I will add to my mise en place. So that's right there. That's about a 1/4 cup diced onion, small. Put that to the side. All right, so now time for the jalapeno. And remember, just to be safe, as a precaution, you want to put a glove on. Make sure you wash the board, your hands, your knife, after you chop any chili that's really spicy, because you don't know, you're going to rub your eye, maybe go to the bathroom by accident. That's happened to many a cook, including myself. So be very careful. So just to review, let's cut it down the center. We're doing this because we want to remove the seeds, but keep some of the heat, but keep all that nice jalapeno flavor, okay? So just like we did last time, use the tip of the knife and run it right through, okay? Oh. Okay, and I think about one of these guys is more than enough for, I think this will be about, come out to about 1/4 cup. Just remember, 1/4 cup is 2 ounces, 1/2 cup is 4 ounces, 3/4, 6 ounces, and 1 cup, 8 ounces. Those are measurements we'll get more into as we get through the term. So let me just get rid of this stuff, scrape it off. Okay, remember, always work clean. Okay. And then we're gonna go for a little dice on these, okay? Remember, waxy side down. We don't want to slip. I saw some of you guys, you did some great stuff last time with the guac and the other projects, but remember, skin side down so we don't slip, okay? And just use your fingers to bend it back, okay? Okay. All right, let's rock it out. Okay, just line it all up. We're good to go now. Just remember, take your time. You have your julienne, from there you want your small dice, so tap it down, tame it out a little bit. Just remember, rocking motion, just nice and easy, okay? Speed comes with experience, okay? I'm just doing it for the sake of a video here, okay? Sake of time, all right? This is something good to practice, so you get yourself some big bell peppers. You know, I'll do one this way too, so you can see if your knife is sharp enough, it'll go through the waxy bit, but you always want to be careful, okay? Safety first with this, okay? All right, rocky motion. And our final one, okay? Also, I mean, it's always not just for the aesthetics for the dice, but also everything cooks at a consistent time. So if you have one piece that's giant, one piece that's tiny, they're gonna cook at different temperatures. I mean, at different, what's the word I'm looking for? They will complete being cooked at different times, especially if you're working with, say, pieces of chicken, and you have one piece of chicken that's this big and one that's this big. This one's gonna be raw, while this one's gonna be too dry, all right? So I'm gonna measure this guy up. I like to get my 2 ounce, souffle cup here. If you don't have these, it's fine. You could just use measuring cups and just throw them into your plate or mise en place bowl. So that's about good enough. I use about that much. All right, tap it down and add this to my mise en place. All right, so next up is our fresh garlic. So you get them like this. I know you've seen it peeled, but I haven't really shown you how to take the skin off. There's a few different methods to take off the paper. I mean, you want to just put all your weight down on it and just like kind of like break it apart as best you can. Try to go for the bigger ones. In my opinion, fresh garlic like this is so cheap. Don't waste your time on these little guys. You want to get these, get the big ones, focus on those. You want to try to get something called elephant or colossal garlic. They'll be like nice and big, so it'll be easy to clean. But like I said, you want to concentrate on more of these big guys here. Don't waste your time with it's not worth the effort for something like that. Okay. All right, so these actually just came out clean the way they were. Leave them out with your onions and stuff. Don't put them in the fridge because they will help it to grow too much moisture. The drier the skin gets, the easier it is for it to come off. So you could also use, this guy's all right. You can use the edge of a knife, you know, depending on what you're doing, because we're, you know, so just tap it lightly or kind of squish it like that. Have that paper come right out, okay? All right, always have students in their free periods come, and I'm doing like about maybe 10, 15 pounds of garlic. I wind up stinking of garlic, but it's a good thing, you know? You know, you won't run into any vampires. So we need about 3 cloves for this. You know, this one's giving me a little trouble, so I'm just going to smash them a little bit with the knife. Not smash like I would for the mince, but just enough to get the paper off, okay? So you see, all right? So I'm going to clean my board down and mince this guy's up here. All right, so like before I said, think of something you hate, and then towards the heel of the knife, preferably towards the edge of the board, so you have the handle coming off to the side, and just open palm, straight down, open palm, straight down, open palm, straight down. And I'm going to do 4 for mine. You could do less, you could do more, depending on how much of a garlic fan you are. I'm a big fan of garlic, so I add a little more than the recipe. Okay, and just remember to mince. All right. You know, we're not going to smash garlic like this all the time. There's other applications where we want to slice it really thin or actually mince it. But recipes like this, I find it just easier just to smash it, mince it. If you were to add some salt to this and start smearing it like this, you'd get like a nice garlic paste. But you could do that in a little food processor like in no time. All right, so this guy's good. I'm going to get him in my container and move on to my next part of my mise. All right, so we got our beautiful cilantro, and we want about I think it's 1 tablespoon I put. Let me just check my recipe again. Yeah, I put 1. Oh my God, baby. Look how I printed this thing so small. It's like comical. I can't even like see where it is. All right. So I usually like a little more cilantro than usual. The recipe I have for consistency's sake, it's about 1 tablespoon. So it's about right there. I'll put a little more. I'm just ripping the tops off. I don't want any of these ends. But I'm going to save this, maybe put it in a jar with water, and just pick as I need, okay? This is still a very beautiful bunch left here, okay? So you remember we want to just to review like we did with the guac and the parsley. When we did with the garlic knots, we just kind of like fold everything into each other, trying to ball it up, get a nice tight little ball, and then with that rocky motion, just tame it a little bit, and then we can start to get it nice and thin. So the thing with herbs, if you see the recipe, it doesn't just say throw everything in pan and cook. There's steps to it, and there's a reason for that madness. It's not because I'm just trying to mess with you. It's because of you want to build the flavors appropriately. Just like we're not going to throw in the garlic right away, because the garlic is going to burn if you put it in right first. You want to sweat the peppers and onions to get them nice and translucent. And by translucent, that means it's semi-transparent, okay? So we don't want caramelization because we don't want too much of a strong oniony flavor. We just want the essence of that flavor. Okay, let me clean this and move on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Spanish olives. This is actually one of my favorites other than Kalamata olives, which are from Calamon, Greece. But anyway, these are really big, especially in Puerto Rican, Dominican cooking. Gives a lot of flavor, especially with the added pimento and that brininess, which we're actually going to use some of that brine. And when you think I'm saying what the hell does brine mean, brine is the liquid that is packed in. So that's some salt, vinegar, in this case a little vermouth. I guess these are used for dirty martinis as well, but this brand is really good. I think they have them at Costco as well, but you can see these are monster size ones, really big, and they're also good because you want to be able to cut them easily. If they're the tiny little Goya ones, you don't want those. Plus, you don't want the ones that are already pre-cut. You want to try to get a nice big whole olive, okay? So I like to pop it like a Snapple bottle. Helps get the cap open. Get that nice little thing. And let me show you a few before we actually work on them here so you can see the inside, okay? The pimento, you can actually suck it out. Hey, there it is, it's gone. When I was a kid, I would just put it on my finger like this and eat it. Yum, yum. Anyway, so let's talk about the brine. The brine is definitely a big flavor component of the beef filling. So I'm going to just kind of, actually let me take some olives out. That says about 2.5 tablespoons of olives, which usually comes out to about 5 or 6 of these bad boys. So I'm going to take them out like this. Get a better implement here. The reason I'm not pouring it out because I want to save all that brine for further cooking adventures. I don't want to waste any of that brine. It's good for marinating, it's good for pernil, it's good for a lot of other things in Latin cooking, okay? That's a little briny there. Okay. I think one more for good luck. Okay. So, these are my olives. I'm going to show you how we're going to slice them up. And then now I have a little more room in my jar. Take my 1 tablespoon measurement, okay? And just lightly tip it to the side, get that juice in there. Okay. All right, and then we're just going to pour it in there. And just a little more dash of good luck. I had a student who used to love the brine so much that she used to drink it. Yeah, that's another story for another day. All right, so I'm going to put this brine in my mise en place. Okay, now for these, we're going to slice them in circles and rounds. So we're just going to hold it like this and just kind of slice it like that. So we get like nice little kind of segments like that. If you've ever had, you know, these Puerto Rican style empanada, Monica, the baby's loose. The baby's loose. My son, he got out of his gate. So we're just lightly cooking like that. I mean, cutting it, slicing like that. I'm gonna keep those rounds. There's many good Puerto Rican dishes that have this in there. There's one dish I can't, the name escapes me. It's made with green banana, not plantain, but green banana and chicken gizzards, and it has a ton of these olives in there. It's really delicious. The name escapes me, but if you can remember, email me, please. And make it for me, because it was good stuff. All right, so we're about done here. All right, so I'm gonna add these guys to my mise, and then we'll, I think, start cooking. All right, so one last thing that we're gonna add to our mise en place for the meat is a tomato paste. I usually like a different brand, either Hunt's or Tutoroso, but I couldn't find it. But nonetheless, they're all similar. I've actually seen people make this in Greece and in Sicily, how they put it out, the tomato pulp on tables, and throughout the day in the sunlight, dries it out. It's a really cool process, but that's another lesson. One lesson I do want to tell you about is to sing about something called botulism, and that's when most people do this at home, and they're done with this, even though we just need only 2 tablespoons. You take what you need, what do? You put plastic on it, you put it in the refrigerator. That's a big no-no. Okay, that's going to give you a chance at definitely a botulism infection, which means where particles from the metal will leach into the food. So you never store things in cans that are open. Once you open a can, no matter how big or how small, the rest of it goes into a container. So for now, I'm going to just take the 2 tablespoons I need, and like with everything else, just use my finger to level it off. Okay, be careful on the side. Actually, wait, let me just do that again. Okay, just put that in. Next time, let's use something else, but I'm trying to make an example of something else. So that's about 2 tablespoons here. Okay, this guy's a little squishy to deal with. I like the ones that come in a toothpaste kind of thing. You just squeeze out what you need. You still need to measure those, so that's about the 2 tablespoons we need. Okay, so when I want to store it, I'm gonna put it in little containers like this that I have with lids and store them like that, or a Tupperware. Don't do one of these things and then put it in your refrigerator and then like leave it there, and then you just see mold and stuff growing around, and then you're gonna get a case of botulism. So most of the time, when I open a can, I just use the whole thing. That's why these cans usually come so small. Unless you're working in a restaurant or institution, they won't have giant cans in retail. They just have these little small ones for that reason. Okay, because you'll always use the whole thing of tomato sauce, but you won't use the whole thing of tomato paste. All right, so I'm gonna go store this in the container. Then I think our next step is to cook. Another tip is that you can put it in a Ziploc bag like this, and you could actually do that toothpaste method kind of thing that those other tomato paste brands come, and you could like snip the tip and squeeze out as milk. But if you do that, make sure you get all your air out, push all the paste to the bottom. It's similar to like using this for icing for cake or something like that. Make sure there's no air in there. Okay, I like to say burp the bag or fart the bag, if you will. Okay, get that out. All right, and then we'll kind of roll that nice and tight. That helps to do with the air pressure and get all that stuff out of this. So now you have tomato paste ready, safely stored for next time. Okay, let's cook. Now I'm about to cook my beef filling, and you see I have my mise all set up nicely. And I have step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So first we start with the oil, swirl it in on medium-high heat, add the onions and jalapenos, then our garlic because we don't want it to burn, so we add it in after a couple minutes. Then 4 is the olives, tomato paste, and brine. Okay, and this is our beef, and then with the beef, we have the dry team. Okay, they're all going in. So for the sake of time, I have them here. We have our oregano, salt and pepper, cumino or cumin, and our sazon. And for the last bit, we stir in our chopped cilantro. Okay, I have a picture of this up with the project as well. And one thing I want to show you with the beef, so the recipe is for 1 pound. Okay, so just as a tip, if you don't know this or not, you want to see here on the scale, it'll say 1.0. Anything around that is good, even if it's like a 0.98. But once it gets to 0.125, 134, you want to get close to a pound. Or if you have a butcher that will give you an exact pound ground, you can do that. So I have my ground chuck here, really lean in flavor, okay? I don't want it too greasy because I'm going to bake them as well, all right? So let's get this mise to the side and get cooking. Bye-bye. All right, so medium-high heat. That means not that high. Okay, a little bit like that, okay? It's about medium, but a little more. If you can see here the dial, medium, a little more. So we'll get to let that preheat, all right? The reason is you never cook in a cold pan. You always want to have a hot pan, but we don't want it too hot. We're not searing here. We just want to get translucency from the onions and the peppers and that bit of our mise, okay? So just give this a little bit to warm up. I mean, if you have like this, tap, tap. So give it about a minute, all right? All right, so I think my pan has been heated enough now, okay? So you can tell once you put your oil in, this is my 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And you can see how it's running away. And that's where I say that we can swirl. So now you can see how you can swirl. All in the wrist. I'm kind of using my wrist to go like that. Okay. You'll smell the aroma of the oil. Okay. Also, as part of your mise en place, have your stirring implements prepared and ready. Okay, so I'm just going to put this guy right here. And yes, I have the dogs out, as the student said last time. All right, so I'm going to add my onions and peppers. Okay, boom. Okay. Okay. That's the nice sizzle that you want, okay? Spread it around. You don't want to hear a high hiss. We're not doing any kind of wok work or searing to get some high color. We just want to bring out flavor of this. That's the difference between boiling sauce and simmering sauce. Like, especially to my Italian friends out there, or people who like Italian food, you know, you never boil the sauce, you simmer the sauce all day long. Because the longer you simmer something, the more flavor you bring out of it, okay? If you boil it, it's just going to reduce down to nothing, okay? Some chunks here, all right? So let this bad boy cook down for a minute. All right, sweet. So we got our onions and peppers going. Okay. Like I said, just don't go crazy. If you definitely use a nice non-stick pan that you have, like this one here. Please don't put more oil than necessary, because you will have a greasy empanada. Okay, put our garlic in now. Okay, stir them in. Actually, I'm gonna lower the heat a little bit. It's kind of getting hot. Okay. Okay. Smells so nice. So nice. But, you know, like I said, this recipe is more of a traditional Puerto Rican or Dominican style. This recipe is inspired actually by an old relative of mine when I was growing up. On my other side of the family, a lot of Puerto Rican ethnicity. So always from a young age, I always appreciated Latin flavors along with my Greek ones. Okay, so we'll let this cook a little bit. All right, cool. So now I'm going to add part 4, okay, which is our brine, our olives. I'm going to put the brine in first to help kind of deglaze the pan a little bit. Mix that in. Okay, smells really good right off the bat. Then I'm going to throw in the olives. Add a little bit more moisture. You know, these are the real kind of empanadas that, you know, I grew up with kind of. My wife is now, she's Ecuadorian. Ecuadorians have many different styles as well. Just like the ones you saw from Colombia in that video when we covered that. Okay. So I'm going to add my tomato paste in just a little bit. Just for a little bit. Cook it just a little bit. Mix it in. kind of spread it around before I put the meat in. Okay. Just to kind of loosen it up. Sometimes it's kind of hard and cold, so you want to get it a little ready. Alright. Alright, so as this cooks, I'm going to lower my heat and grab the ground meat. Okay, actually I'm going to put some gloves on first. Remember safety first, especially with ground meat. So I just want to make sure I put this in, and I'm going to break it up as I put it in. Also, a good tip is, just like with the cookies is important, I mean, not bearing E. coli and stuff, because we're going to cook this right away. You want to kind of have this closer to room temperature, because if you shock the beef, it's going to get tough on you. Alright, I don't know if you ever got a good steak, and you just threw it in a hot pan when the steak was ice cold, you get really rubbery on you. Okay, so I'm going to put my heat up to medium. Maybe needs another bottle. Okay. And just start to work this in, kind of folding things over. But I really want to break up that meat as I'm cooking this stuff here. Alright, you can use a metal implement, but the metal is going to ruin this beautiful Teflon we have in the pan here. Okay, so always plastic utensils on Teflon. Okay, so I'll let this guy cook. You put the heat up. You can put the heat up a little bit, maybe medium high, but you want to keep an eye on it. Okay. Scrape your sides down. It's really important to use this curved part of the blade here to really kind of do one of these things. Scrape it down. This will definitely help you master crepes, which we will do next. I heard your votes, and the people have spoken. Okay. I definitely want to try to do pizza with you guys before Christmas. So we'll see where we're at. So you see this is browning, I'm flipping. I'm going to continue to do that for a little bit more, about a couple more minutes. Okay, so now I'm going to add the dry team, my oregano. Usually I like to use the ground oregano, especially if you're using pernil, but I was all out. But regular oregano is good. My salt and pepper. Not too much salt because my cumin right now. Okay, cumin adds a nice note of smokiness. Alright, I'm going to add 1 packet of sazon. Some people like more, but when it comes to sodium content, just lower your heat a little bit. You don't want to put too much, because this does have a little bit of MSG in it. So 1 packet goes far enough. Some people like to put 2. I know some people who are really out of space and they like to put 3, but then you have like neon orange beef. Okay, so 1 is more than enough, because we have some in our dough as well. And you can see how you're getting that classic look. And if you could smell this right now, you're definitely doing the right thing. Okay, so let's cook this up. Put my heat up to medium. Okay, remember, use the blade to break up. Okay. Alright. So I'm going to let this keep cooking. So I have this cooking now like medium, high heat. Medium-ish to low. Like I said, you want to sweat these veg and spices and meats all together nicely. Really bring out the flavor. You don't want to like put it on high on blast and just like sear out all the flavors and all the moisture as well. Okay, so just like fold over and in. Always go from the center out if you can. A lot of people just like to mix stir like this. So you got to make sure you're getting every little bit. So try to aim for like the big chunks like this guy here, and try to chop those up. Okay. So, alright, I think about another minute or 2 and we should be good. And then the last thing we're going to do, our little guy over here, Mr. Cilantro, he's going to go in now. Okay, we're going to stir him in towards, now that we're almost done. The reason we do this is that we don't want to cook out all the flavor of the cilantro. And plus you want to keep some of that nice bright color of the herb. It goes with any fresh herb usually, even pastas and everything like that. You know, fresh leafy herbs like that always usually get stirred in towards the end or put in at the end. Your heavier herbs like rosemary, thyme, sage, things like that can be cooked, you know, early on. They're very strong and woody. So Alright, so I'm gonna take this now. I think we're okay. And I want to take the temperature. Okay, this is something we've covered a few times. And if you remember with ground beef, I'll pause and see who's going to give me the right answer. What's the internal temperature for ground meat supposed to be? Give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you know the answer? Okay. If you answer correctly, I'm very proud of you. If you did, you got some work to do. So make sure it's on Fahrenheit, not Celsius. Okay. I'm going to kind of tip it a little bit because I don't want to hit the bottom of the pan. So I want to make sure I could get into the liquidy area of the beef, see where it's reading. Alright, so if you can see that, it's almost up to 199. But I want to, let me see if I can get a couple pieces of meat on here. See the temperature. It's about 193, so that's good. Turn this guy off. You may think, well, you know, the quality may suffer because of that, but with ground beef, especially with empanadas, filling like this, it's okay. It's not like it's a steak that has to be a perfectly cooked temperature. And we just want to make sure, especially ground meat, that it's safe. So we turn the heat off, and we're just going to keep chopping at this. Chopping. Trying to make it smaller and smaller, okay? I know, you see, empanadas is a lot of work, guys. I mean, especially if you do the dough. So don't try to do one of these things with your mother's stuff if you don't know how to do this. You could practice using a ping pong ball, not a golf ball because you're going to ding it up. That's what you used to do in culinary school. Or you could take an old pan and use a golf ball because that would have more weight to it. Okay? So this is looking pretty good. I'm going to transfer this to something else to cool. Okay, you want to transfer it into something that's kind of shallow and wide so that it'll cool quick, and then we can put it in the fridge, get it down to that temperature, get it ready to be used as our filling for the empanada. And then we'll taste it. Just let it cool down, and then we'll adjust the seasoning. But it should be on point. All right, so like I was saying, guys, get a nice big container. This is my nice takeout. Reuse these. These are good, man. Don't throw these away. All right, so I'm putting on here so it doesn't melt onto the bottom of the grate. I'm just working here because I don't have a dual, triple camera system. So we're just going to take this good stuff here and just gently scoop it in. Okay. We want a wide container because we want this to cool fast. If I put in a tall container, it's not going to cool down fast enough, and that could, you know, help promote the growth of E. coli or other bacteria. So shake it out. You see how it's like this. Don't pat it down like that. So if you want to keep chopping it, which will also help, you know, cool that down. Okay. Chop it up, help it cool as well. You could do one of these things, like we're doing sushi rice. This is what you do. You fan it. That's another lesson, which we'll definitely do eventually. Do some onigiri or onigiri and some other rolls. But the hardest part with sushi is definitely the rice. That's a technique that's years in the making, and I still perfect mine to this day, even though I think it's pretty good. Okay, so I got this guy in here. Let's take a closer look at him. Yum yums. Okay, maybe a little more parsley on top, which we threw away. But this will cool. I'm gonna leave this out, leave it out for at least an hour, hour and a half, until it's about, you know, I would say below, I don't know, about 70 degrees or so. Then you want to get into the fridge so it gets below 40 degrees within 4 hours time. So you want to be very careful, especially if you're feeding anyone, you know, any young children or elderly people with compromised immune systems and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm not going to cover it either. I'm going to leave it uncovered. Slide this guy on top. Don't even leave it like this. Just make sure like that. Put it right here. All right, and then we'll continue tomorrow by rolling out the discs, making the discos, stuffing it. I'm going to try and make a couple vegetarian ones for my vegetarian friends. I make so many different kinds. And we'll also talk about the different types of crusts. There's flour, there's cornmeal, there's plantain crusts. There's so many things that you could be used for a disc or disco or shell. So, I mean, that's why I love talking about empanadas, because they're so diverse and they can be done in so many different ways. All right. Thank you very much. want to check the temperature now with you guys here. So this is room temperature. You see 81 degrees. So let's see where we're at. It's only been out a little bit. All right, so when we took it off, it was almost at 190, 200 degrees. So it's about 125. We'll check it again in about an hour, and then we'll probably put it in the fridge. One more time, guys. I have the temperature again now. It's closer to room temperature. It's about 5-6 degrees off. But at this point, it's been out about an hour. I'm going to cover it, put it in the fridge, and then it'll get down to around 40 degrees below and be safe to handle. Ideally, not everybody has these thermometers, but they're a couple of bucks. And if you're going to be serious about doing catering and cooking for others, or having a business, or working in a business that serves a lot of people, it's worth the investment.